and welcome to the Priggya Arora Show, where we discuss law and entrepreneurship with people who have been there and done that. My name is Priggya Arora, founder of PA Legal and Intellectual Property Law Firm. And our guest for today is Miss Katie Lipp. She is the founder of Law Practice Queen and also the owner of the Lipp Law Firm. Welcome, Katie, on the show.
Thank you so much, Priggya. I'm really happy to be here.
Thank you so much for your time and for your willingness to share. So let's start with our warm-up question. What is one thing in life you can't live without?
Ooh, coffee. I'm holding it right now. You know, I gotta have my Build Your Empire cup, which is the book that I just wrote. But yeah, no, coffee. That's a big one. I tried to quit coffee right before I started my law firm back in 2019, and yeah, I just couldn't do it. So hats off to people that do it caffeine free. I don't know how you do it.
That's great. That's great. And that's a very, well thought answer so that nobody gets disappointed. It's coffee.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Katie, can you tell us your life story and how did you become the person you are today?
Oh man, my life story. Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, I grew up in Northern Virginia, right outside of Washington, D.C. I come from a military family, so both of my parents are retired military. And it was this culture of my grandparents grew up in the Depression era, didn't have a lot of money. I was always told, like, my grandmother had 3 dresses growing up. And so every money and everything in my family was like, you have to work hard. You have to work hard to succeed, and you need to go to school, and you have to get as much education as possible because, you know, you need, with a solid foundation education, nobody can ever take that away from you. Mm-hmm. So my parents, they both put themselves through school. Obviously with the military, and my mom worked for the most part while we were growing up. So she worked part-time. She took some time off when she had me. I have one older brother who's a year and a half older than me. But for the most part, she was like that working mom, and she had her own business. She started a business. She has a master's in social work. And so she had her own business helping with basically geriatric care management. So whenever families need help with an aging relative, she would assist with that, anything they needed. So, you know, assisted living care, in-home care, family emergencies, like she was always on call. So she was really busy when we were growing up. And I had that model of entrepreneurship. And my grandfather also, he started and ran a car wash. And so he was also an entrepreneur. I didn't necessarily connect to those pieces until later, that I had, like, it's like, you know how you can kind of put everything together when you're looking at it after the fact, but not like in the actual moment. And so, yeah, growing up, I was always like the outgoing, like smart kid, I guess. I was always just like the one who, you know, got good grades and just tried really hard. I was also an athlete. I did soccer, field hockey, track. And so I always had kind of my hands in everything, but I never really learned like how to have a life, how to have balance. That was never really something that I learned how to do until much later. And so it was like I have to get good grades. I have to be in all the activities. I have to do everything perfectly. And so I learned later that I have perfectionistic anxiety, and it's like, you know, it's a 2-sided coin. Yes. but it certainly makes a lot of people uncomfortable. Like if you're around me for a while, you're like, relax, like just sit down, take a break. And it's hard for me to do that. And so yeah, it was, you know, really good upbringing. Like I didn't wish for anything, you know, always had support from my family, and they were very big on the educational piece. And so I knew I had to do something that involved higher education. I was choosing between psychology and law. And so I majored in psychology, love psychology, but I didn't want to go for 5 years for my PhD. I was like, that's way too long. Let me pick law school. It's shorter. And funny enough, I was like, oh, I'll have better job opportunities as a lawyer. And then I graduated right after the Great Recession from law school. So that did not end up being true, but I kind of have come full circle because I do HR law. So it's the thing I was going to do with psychology was workplace psychology. So I've kind of ended up in the same place. Like, it's just kind of funny. It's like you do things you like, as much as you can, and you find your strengths. But yeah, no, it was really good upbringing. And of course there's like more to the story, but that's kind of the basic gist of it. I don't want to bore your listeners with tears.
So Katie, I got so much insights from you. So you come from a military background, and entrepreneurship requires a lot of courage. Do you think that is the reason for your courage, like your parents and your upbringing?
My mom really was trying to talk me out of entrepreneurship. She was like, "Oh, just go work for the government. Like, you'll have a solid retirement and benefits, and you don't have to work as hard." Because she worked really, really hard in her business. She was always on call, and it was really stressful to her. And so, she was stressed a lot. She was stretched pretty thin. Like being a working mom, it's very, very difficult. And then of course my dad worked really hard too. So yeah, she really tried to talk me out of it. And I was actually kind of nervous to tell her, like, yeah, I'm going to start my own law firm, because I was worried, about how she was going to react to it. I actually went out to lunch with my dad, and it was like a confession. It was like, I've decided I'm going to start a law firm. Like, do you think mom's going to take it okay? Because she sees how I am with like being so driven, which is great. It's great when you're driven, but not when like you don't have balance. And again, it's like you have to have balance. That's the key. Yeah. I know we always talk about that, like work-life balance, and that's I think she was just watching how much you work in a law firm, and she's just like, I don't want you to have to like bear that burden. But the reason why I ended up starting my own firm is because I wanted to work from home. I wanted to work remotely, and I wanted to kind of design my entire life. Like, I wanted to focus more on business development and have more flexibility in my schedule. I had a 2-year-old at the time, and I was just totally burnt out. Like, to be honest, I was really, really burnt out. I had been diagnosed with postpartum depression and anxiety. I was like, I need one day a week at home where I can like wear sweatpants and do laundry, and just like do my work. A lot of my clients were in the tech industry. That's one of the industries that I serve pretty heavily in my HR practice. Being where I'm at in Northern Virginia, we're along like the tech corridor where like a lot of companies set up. I'm right near where Amazon is setting up their headquarters, and there's a lot of tech here. And so a lot of my clients work remotely, and I saw them doing that model, and I was like, I want that. I want to have everybody working at home, and we can have an office, but like not feel like chained to the desk, that kind of thing, because I can get ready so much faster and do so much more work when I'm not having to deal with the commute and deal with like the beauty demands of like being in the office, getting dressed, all that, which that does fall, in my opinion, disproportionately on women. And so it's like, I mean, I don't know, maybe there's some guys out there that are putting on makeup before work, more power to you, but it's like, there's that expectation that we should look, to be professional looking, like you need to, get done up a little bit, as I am right now. So it's like, yeah, that was a huge reason for it. I wanted to be in full control of my days, of my time, and I really wanted that remote work. And, the firm I was at was wonderful. I really, really loved working with all the people there. It was wonderful. The way that the business was structured was you needed to be there, in person, which a lot of law firms still do that, now. It's very much an expectation within like the traditional corporate world. But it was just something, I wanted to do something a little bit different.
Wow. So I resonate with your story so much. This is one of the reasons because why I left my job and started my law firm in 2019 itself. And I also remember having this coffee table conversations with my parents about it. And I was like, okay, I'm leaving the job. Is it okay if I come and stay at home for a few days? So they were like, oh my God, this is your home also. You can stay here anytime.
Aw, that's really sweet. Aw,
Yeah.
who wouldn't
So
want parents like that? They're like, yeah, come hang out with us.
yeah. So yeah, you need to. So my parents were like, yeah, you need to take a break. Come and stay with us for some time, and then figure out what you need to do in life.
Oh my gosh, everybody needs parents like that. Shout out to mom and dad.
Yeah. So, Katie, coming back to your, like, as you mentioned, you were mostly involved with HR work. What kind of issues generally used to come in your work life, and how did you deal with that?
Yeah, so I do all aspects of employment law. And so I represent both employers and employees, and I live in separation of employment worlds. So I help when so on the employer side, if there's a difficult employee termination that needs to take place, usually it involves like a medical issue or something like that.
Mhm.
Medical issue or any kind of disability accommodation issue. That's where employers are really like, oh, like, what do we do? Like, how do we handle this situation? Sometimes there's a mental health issue. So I'll help them through that separation of employment process where it's like they've made the decision to terminate, and it's just how do we do that in such a way that's legal, that is along the lines of best practices. There's also circumstances where I'll help with internal workplace investigations. So maybe there's been an allegation of discrimination by an employee, and maybe it's an employee that they've already decided to terminate. That happens pretty frequently, where it's like a decision has been made to terminate, and the employee will raise an issue in the workplace, and they don't want to retaliate against the employee, and bring on a retaliation claim, but the employee is not performing their duties, up to par. And so, up to the standard that they need to. So I like those very difficult employment situations because I'm very good at kind of gauging the emotions and the personalities and the dynamic, and doing the separation in such a way where it reduces the employer's liability, the legal liability. And most of our cases do not go to litigation as a result. Like the goal on the employer end is to keep them out of litigation. And if litigation comes about, end it as quickly as possible because it's costly and resource intensive, and it's a waste of their time. So yeah, that's the employer side. The employee side, we help people with severance agreements, separation packages, things of that nature. Or if somebody is under investigation themselves, we represent a lot of not only executives, but teachers. So we have a pretty heavy presence in the education realm. So education and tech, I would say, are our two biggest industries. And then if somebody is going through a change where they want to leave and maybe start their own business, we do corporate formations. If somebody wants to sell their business or purchase a business, we do mergers and acquisitions. And so it's a varied practice. There's a lot of administrative things that we assist with. So like one of the things we do here, there's if somebody gets laid off and they get unemployment benefits, there's a local commission called the Virginia Employment Commission, and we'll help them with that benefits process. Right now they call it the VEC. The VEC is asking a lot of people to pay back benefits they received during the pandemic because they were just handing them out like candy. And now they're coming back and saying, oh, actually, you weren't eligible for that. And it's a lot of folks that they have already spent the money, the money's gone. And so helping them through that administrative appeals process. And that was something I really like doing, like future casting, trying to see trends in the legal industry and like what new cases are going to come about as a result of market conditions and things of that nature. And that was one of the types of cases I future cast for our practice, because I kind of, once the pandemic started to unfold, I was like, oh, wow, a lot of people are going to get unemployment benefits. This is going to be a huge thing. And so we helped people through that process. And so as a result, we're one of, I think, the only firms in the area that advertises for that type of work. There's just not a lot of attorneys that advertise for it. And so that's something I really like doing. It's like trying to find little niches here and there that you can advertise and basically not be in any competition with anybody else because nobody else is advertising for it. I think that's really interesting to me. So yeah, that's pretty much the practice in a nutshell. We do more things than that, but yeah, generally separation of employment land is like where I like to be. I enjoy that type of work. It's really enjoyable to me to help people do it correctly, because it's such a difficult process for somebody to go through to get terminated, and I just want to make sure it's done the correct way.
Wow. So awesome. As you told that, very less cases enter into litigation and there is a process which is followed. I think your psychology and HR background also helps in people management. I think it's more of people management and negotiation than law in doing that. So I think like for me also, my technology background also helps me in whatever I do. For you, it's like psychology and HR which helps in taking that forward.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's exactly right, Priggya. It's like, it's kind of gauging how the other side would perceive something and just trying to work through a resolution as quickly as possible. These matters, if they go through employment litigation, they can drag on for 2, 3. I've seen even some go on for 5 years, not in court, but like stuck in the administrative processes. So it can be just really, really stressful for a business owner to be encountered with that. A lot of the business owners that we work with that do get sued, they don't know the law. They maybe were the first lawyer they've ever worked with, other than maybe a lawyer that helped them set up their company, or maybe they set up their company through like LegalZoom or something like that. So it's just walking them through. Usually the lawsuits that come about are for overtime. They didn't pay overtime, something. Those are the types of cases we're seeing a lot recently. I like litigating those because it's math, right? It's like, is the person eligible for overtime or not? And then if they are, how much should they get? It's not as emotional. So I like, if I'm going to court, I'd rather it be less emotional. I'm not, we'll defend discrimination cases and things like that, but I don't like to bring those types of cases just because we don't work on contingency. And I feel like it's almost better to have a contingency lawyer take those on.
Great. So Katie, now, you had your law firm practice working very well. So what motivated you to start Law Practice Queen, which was, I think, your second venture, and I think it is most important to you because you have put that in background as well. So what was the motivation behind starting Law Practice Queen?
I was shocked how much easier it was to have my own firm than to work within a firm. I was very scared to start a law firm. I thought I couldn't do it. I thought I wasn't smart enough. I was like, oh no, what if this fails? And you eventually get on board with your mindset, but it was a process for sure. But I was just so shocked. I was like, is this it? This is it? This is all I was scared of? Like, other people need to know how easy it is to start a law firm and to build a book of business. And it's like my personal way to try to fix gender inequality within the legal profession. I just see a lot of women leaving the law. I just see a ton of them leaving the law. And it's like, you put all this effort in to get a law degree, which, like, going through law school is not easy. I think right after I finished law school, I was like, oh, anybody can do that. It's just reading, whatever. And now looking back, 12 years later, I'm like, that was hard. That was really emotionally taxing and just like uncertain. And so you go through all that effort, and then you go and you work for a firm. And I see some people leaving, within a couple of years, and you're saddled with all this debt. And it's like, maybe if they had found entrepreneurship, maybe if they had, been mentored by somebody who's like, hey, here's another option. Because I feel like the options you're given in law school are work for a big firm or work for the government, or maybe work for a big firm and then go in-house for a company, but they don't push the solo practice as much. And it's like, that's the majority of legal services that are being provided. Why is there? Well, I know why there's not as much focus on it, because we're not going to give the big donations back to the law schools. That's my personal opinion. But it's like, why wasn't this pushed? Why wasn't this emphasized? And why did I feel like I couldn't do this? I think that was kind of a big problem in my mind. I was like, that's a problem that I thought, oh, like I had thoughts like, oh, a man should be in charge of a law firm because people react a lot better. These are my thoughts, right? These are not realities. They'll react a lot better to like a man being at the head of the law firm. And it's like, absolutely not. That is such a lie. And so I do like kind of showing people my world, showing people like, here's what I'm going through as a law firm owner. I'm my third year in, will be 3 years in July of this year. And, it feels like a lot longer than that, but yeah, just showing people that whole process, because I do feel a responsibility to share that knowledge with other female lawyers, and also male. I have a lot of guys that I mentor as well too, but I like to focus my time on the women in law, just because I do think that there's that huge gender disparity amongst partners, and my understanding is it's that way in other places too, to a greater extent. So yeah, it's a passion project. It is something I really, really enjoy doing. And it's something that complements my law practice too. So, I meet other attorneys, tell them I do employment law, they refer me employment work. So it blends, and it's a good complement to the law practice.
I absolutely agree and resonate with you, because as I told you, when I left my law firm job and I thought of starting my own law firm practice, I think it took only one day to realize that I just need courage, nothing else.
Yeah.
And then systems and processes, of course, which develops later on. But the first step is to quit the job with courage. Okay, I'm going. So my boss was like, Priggya, are you joining some other law firm? Where are you going? What are you doing? What's your next plan? I said, no, I'm not joining anything else. I am done. It's now my time to just start with it. So I think that is the most important thing, and what you are giving to everyone who is looking up to you is courage to start, and then systems and processes follow.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the courage piece is huge, and it's a process. You don't just like wake up one day and you're like, I'm gonna start a law firm. Like it's I interviewed at other firms, and it was kind of like, well, that's not going to work, because it's like, jumping out of the frying pan into the fire. It's like, okay, this is the same environment everywhere that I'm seeing. And I don't want, how it is, like starting at a new firm, it's like you're at the bottom of the totem pole again, and you just want to make sure that you're advancing in your career. And the firm that I was at, wonderful firm, but there was no opportunity for equity ownership. I was an income partner. So I was getting compensated for the work that I was bringing into the firm. I was also making a salary, and that there was no clear path to equity ownership or owning a piece of the law firm. And I really wanted that. I was like, I want something that's mine. And it was just such a nice feeling. I didn't realize how much pressure there was, like, in having somebody else having control over my job and my future. And I felt that weight lift. I was like, wow, I didn't realize I was worried about getting fired. Like, there was no objective evidence that I was going to get fired. Like, I was doing well at the firm, and everything was going fine. But when you get stuck in the trap of perfectionism, you're always worried about, like, what's the other shoe that's going to drop, and you're always thinking about things in the future, and it's hard to focus on the present and the objective evidence in front of you. But yeah, it was such a huge weight lifted off. It's like, it's just me now. Like, it's just, and then you're like, oh no, it's just me now. You kind of to the other, you're like, oh man, like, I better stay focused. But of course, like, I mean, everybody's experience is different, but for me, and I think a lot of other entrepreneurs I've talked to, it's like, you need to work on balancing, you'll have that drive, you'll have that innate drive because it's yours now. And you had that drive when you were an employee at a firm. It's just, how do you turn that off? I think the challenge is, how do you put up boundaries? How do you turn that off? And I've worked really hard on boundaries, and would encourage anybody else out there to do the same. Otherwise, you're just going to work all the time and burn out.
And otherwise, in jobs, we were already working like that. We have started our firms to get freedom. So for me also, I think it's very important. For example, 7 p.m. Okay, it's 7 p.m. I'm not going to work after 7 p.m. The calls are done, everything is done. That is my time. So that is an example of a boundary which we need to set up when we are, specifically when we become entrepreneurs, than after quitting our jobs. And as you said, I feel the same. In law firms, or I think this is a global culture everywhere, that in law firms you do not have this freedom to go on to the equity structure. It's generally run by people, and even if it is there, it's a very, very long process. It will take you 10 to 15 years to reach to that place, but you want to live your life today. So what about that? So I think for that, it's very important that people get motivation to just begin with whatever they want to begin in life.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's that wanting to seize the moment, like that challenge between what, do I want to push it out to the long term, and that's a sign of maturity, right? Like, can you wait to get that reward in the future? Or do you need like present, like, nope, I just gotta do something now for me. And I think with law school, and I think a lot of people can relate to this, we've been in school our entire lives, entire lives. Then you go to more school and you see, I remember studying at the library, and, most of my friends didn't pursue anything past college. I have some friends that are doctors, some friends that are lawyers, but for the most part, people went out into the working world and they're making money, they're having fun, they have their weekends, all of those things. And then you spend all that time in law school, then you have to take the bar exam, then you're an associate in a firm. And it's just like, at what point do you start living your life? And there's really not a lot of space within the traditional law firm culture to live a life. So it's almost, again, it's just my personal experience, but I find that, the reason I love to encourage people into entrepreneurship is, like, at least try it. If you think you might want to have more freedom, and if you're thinking about leaving the law altogether, you might as well see if you have an interest in it and you think you might want to continue servicing clients, like, try it. There's so much of a need for good lawyers out there, especially if you're a good lawyer and you enjoy it. I almost think the law firm culture takes away the joy of practicing law. It can be really fun being a lawyer, and you don't see a lot of people saying that, right? Because it's like, oh, the billable hours and you have to work all the time. It's like, I don't work all the time. I was just talking about this yesterday. Somebody was saying, oh, like, if you're a law firm owner, like, you can't work a 9 to 5 schedule. And I was like, I work 9 to 4 on some days. Like, sometimes I stop working at 4 o'clock and I go and I do an event with my daughter or whatever. And it's like, you create this reality for yourself. And now granted, I have a team, it's not just me. I have other lawyers working with me, but I've developed that because I wanted to be able to, like you said, have that freedom and have that flexibility. And it's so worth it to try it.
Definitely. It's really worth it. No doubt. So Katie, as you just told that you have a daughter, and I think people who start with entrepreneurship always have this concern, as you just shared, that how can you work 9 to 4, or how can you just work 9 to 5 and create a law firm? But I also feel that is not the case. We can do it and it's possible. So how do you manage your time effectively, or how can people who want to start with entrepreneurship should consider some factors that, okay, this is how we can effectively manage our day without neglecting our family and our responsibilities, and everything is possible. So can you share some tips on that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things where it's a work in progress and it depends on your current family situation, and everybody's situation is totally different, right? Like, but when I started my firm, my daughter was two and well, two, three, she was a toddler. And so it was this situation where I was, I started my firm. My husband was working full time for a nonprofit organization. So we both were working full time, but he always had a more flexible job. He was the one that had more flexibility. And we were together like all throughout, like we've been together since 2001. So 21 years we've been together since high school, basically. And it was like, he always had more flexibility and I was almost jealous of it. I mean, I'll admit that. It's like seeing him, he's very good at like living his life and he doesn't have any guilt about it.
Yeah.
And that's never come naturally to me. So it's a good balance between the two of us. But it's nice when you're an entrepreneur to have somebody, if you have a spouse who does have a job, right? Who does have that paying job, right? And to have that, those funds saved up. Like I know a lot of firm owners who they run a contingency practice and it takes a little bit longer for your contingency practice to be financially viable. And so I think it is, as much as you can, try to set up a plan, a financial plan where it's like, okay, here's the type of firm I'm going to set up. And here's like, make sure that it's ready to start making money as soon as possible, right? Because I think that's something that maybe prevents people from having that success. Like if you aren't making any money and you're not financially viable, especially if you have like a contingency practice, like you just have to plan for the unexpected. And so I had a husband who had a paying job, right? And he had health insurance, right? So I was on his health insurance plan, had those benefits. Now I do offer benefits to my staff, but it was like I had that safety net, so to speak, and we had saved up money. We had always lived far below our means. So that was also something that was just kind of instilled in me. It was like you save for a rainy day, like, and you just never know. And maybe that's anxiety too, but like it's, it's there for a reason. It does tend to protect us. And yeah, I've just always been that like cash hoarding person where I'm like, well, let me just like save, save, save. So we had lived in a house for about 10 years that was just far below our means. We could have like upgraded, but we were just like, no. And we always just were very careful with our financial decisions to live far below our means. So we were able to take that risk. And, when we took the risk, I coordinated with him. I was like, hey, I'm going to do this. And he's like, okay, all right. So we're doing this. And so you plan it together. I took a whole year to plan my firm before I launched it. So I worked on nights and weekends and set everything up and was just very strategic with that. I hired a lawyer to make sure I was doing it all correctly. I didn't want to get sued. I was just like, let me just, because I took a book of business that was worth like over $250,000, like, and started my firm with that. So I was just like, let me just do this right and buy the book and methodically. And I actually ended up turning that process into a book. I have an ebook called How to Start a Law Firm. It's a mini guide on how to start a law firm, all the steps I took, which is available on my website, but lawpracticequeen.com. But with the husband being there, we started the firm, and I also have an hourly practice. So the first week, I had money in the bank from one of my clients. So it's like I was billing every 2 weeks. Some firms, now I bill once a month, but at the beginning I was billing once every 2 weeks. You betcha. It was like, I'm done with the work, you're getting an invoice. And I actually think clients appreciated that more because it helped them to budget. Some companies were like, look, like send us a bill once a month. Like this is, too much. But for most of my clients who knew what I was doing, who had a relationship with me, they knew like, yeah, she's like getting this started. Let's like support her and all that. And a lot of them had done the same thing too. So they knew the game. They knew what was going on. And so I would highly recommend doing that. Once the work is done, bill for it, get that money in the bank, and get people to help you, like start delegating things. So I had a paralegal that I hired at the very beginning. I had an associate that I hired the first month, and that's challenging, like to offer people money when you don't know like how
Yeah.
much money you're going to be bringing in. Like you have an idea, but you're like, oh my God, I just offered somebody a six-figure salary and like hopefully this will work, and it's like the anyways, I know I need to go back to your original question, which is how do you balance the family and everything? So let me finish responding to that before I go off on a tangent. But what has progressed for our family, my husband now works with me. He has resigned from his full-time job as of March of this year, and he helps with all of the back office stuff for my firm. So invoices, collections, making sure all the retainers are there, that kind of thing. So the money end of things, he coordinates with the bookkeeper, he coordinates with our accountant. That's been really, really helpful. I don't see many families out there where both parents are going full tilt working all the time. Like I do see most families doing a balance, but you just have to do what works best for you. I do know some people that, they have a week nanny that lives with them, and then they have a weekend nanny, and then that's just the lifestyle that they've signed up for. I wanted something that was just much more laid back. And so my daughter, she's 7 now. She goes to public school and she's home for the summer, and she's in like a few camps and things like that. But for the most part, my husband does the heavy lifting when it comes to dropping her off and picking her up from school and cooking and grocery shopping and all of those things. And then I do the heavy lifting when like I do the laundry and I coordinate with the housekeeper and, do all like kind of like the house care type things. So it's like, I think just figuring out your various systems, like who's doing what, right? And then like, get out of their way and let them do their jobs. And it's running a household is very similar to running a company. It's just communication, respect, and just like you're a team. Like I think when it comes to, I know this is not like a marriage show, but it's like having, treating them like they're your teammate and being their number one cheerleader, and instead of pointing at them and being like, what aren't they doing right, try to focus on what they are doing right, or I meant to say what are they doing wrong, but focus on what they're doing right for you and see how you can support them. And that's how I approach being a manager too. It's like, how can I help my employee do their job? What can I do to help support them? And so it is challenging. I think that's been the most challenging thing of entrepreneurship, is being a manager, because you don't have a lot of control there. You don't have as much control as you think you do.
Yeah, so I think, as you said, regarding financial management. So in a conversation with a friend long time ago, he shared that financial freedom is not limited to making more money or making money. Financial freedom is also related to the fact that you keep your expenses so minimum that you feel freedom of not earning money. Like, it's okay if I don't earn so much money, it's okay if I earn less, especially during initial years. So I see it as a part, like I should not have any loans on me, I should not have anything on credit, I should not have some extra expenses to pay. So if I do not have that, my basic requirement of money is very less. If it is very less, I have more freedom to experiment, to spend money, to earn money. So I think there is a lot of freedom, as you said, that if you keep your expenses very, very low.
Yeah, it's the money issue is like there's so much like emotion and just conditioning throughout that whole time. Like, everybody views money in a different way. And yeah, like, but I do think that concept has served me well. It's like, keep your overhead low. I mean, it's like same concept with a business. Keep your overhead low and your profits high, and like you're
Yes.
bound to succeed. It's like, keep it in the green. And it's like, yeah, I think the more overhead you have, then the more pressure you have to
Correct.
earn. And it's like, why I think there's so much pressure on us these days, especially as a lawyer. It's like we take it so seriously, and it's like,
Yes.
how can we take the pressure off? How can we make it fun? And I think if you have a lot of financial responsibilities, it limits your options, right? And so, yeah, I mean, I struggle with that, and I think a lot of people do, because it's like you want to treat yourself and have nice things, and you want to be able to spend the money that you have. It's like that old saying, like, you can't take it with you when you die. You want to be able to enjoy yourself and all that. But yeah, I think I mean, and again, everybody has a different mentality when it comes to money, but mine for a long time was, oh no, what if it runs out? Which, like, I'm working on that. And I'm like, no, it's not going to run out. I'm the source of my income. Like, it's all good. But that was my concern for a while. So it was like, okay, let me save for a rainy day, save for a rainy day, save for a rainy day. And then I think the big piece that my husband has helped me with is he's big into investing and, the stock market and all that. And I feel really grateful that he's paid attention to that, because, like, if it were up to me, I'd just be sacking it away in like a bank account, which like doesn't earn barely any interest. And so that's something that, like, my parents are in, like, they have an investment club at their church that they're really big into. And my husband talks to them a lot about, like, what companies to invest in. And that's something that I have zero interest in. I like once people start talking about like stocks, like, I can pay attention, but I'm like, I just don't care. I just really don't care. And I think as an entrepreneur, I think it's so important to know, like, what don't you care about and what can you delegate to somebody else that cares about it more. And it's like, well, I have my husband, he works on that end of things. If I didn't have a husband, I would hire somebody, like a financial advisor or something like that to manage my money for me. Like, okay, you're going to diversify my portfolio? Great. Like, invest in these mutual funds? Great. I'm not going to be the one to be going in and like clicking around and doing all of that. No, thank you. Just like they don't want to be the one to look at, separation agreements and, HR laws and all that kind of stuff. So, but anyways, yeah, I think the money issue is so complicated. And one of the things that has really, really helped me, I took this course. It's called Money Mentality Makeover by Amanda Frances, Frances. I really liked that course. And I'm actually going through it now with a group of business owners. We're going through the course again together. And the whole concept behind it is like kind of getting into your mindset around money and how you earn money and like what is your relationship with money. And nobody really talks about that, right? It's such a taboo issue. But after taking her course the first time, it helped me to raise my prices, as a lawyer. It helped me to put up more boundaries around how people paid me and be like, nope, like if you want to work with me, you need to pay a retainer and like, here's the stuff. And if you don't want to do that, that's totally fine. You can call somebody else, but like, yeah, it is a work in progress. Like my friends, like that whole thing is, it's fraught. It's fraught. And like the collections end of trying to get money for clients that don't pay you, like that is like the struggle. So it's yeah, but anyways, going back to your whole point, yeah, keep those expenses low. And that's why I love running a remote law firm, because we do have an office lease, but it's it's $500 a month. Like it's totally doable. It's not $10,000 a month, which I know a lot of commercial leases are. So it really gives us a lot more flexibility in how we run the practice.
Correct. So, Katie, now coming to a rapid fire round, answer these questions very quickly. What are 3 things in life that you are grateful for?
Dogs. I love dogs. I have a dog, a chocolate lab, Sugar. So I love dogs. I love my family. Very grateful for my family. And I'm grateful for my business. I love what I do. And yeah, I feel very fulfilled with what I'm doing right now in life. So I feel
Awesome.
very grateful for that.
Awesome. 2 traits that you think are useful for your legal career.
To what? Sorry?
Traits or habits.
Traits or habits. Ooh. Oh, okay. All right. All right. 2 traits just for my legal career, like
Yeah.
success in the legal career. I'm really good under pressure. I don't panic or anything like that. I just kind of like let things roll. I'm very good in like an emergency situation. So that's a good trait. I think like being adaptive and just being able to roll with the punches, and then not taking things too seriously, I think is just a very good trait to have. That one that I struggle with. I won't say that I'm good at that, but I try to work on that every day.
Wow, awesome. And one aspiration you have for the future?
What is, I mean, I think just continuing to help more women start law firms and scale law firms, just growing female wealth is something that I would love to have more of in my future.
Awesome, awesome, great. So, Katie, now to conclude, can you share some key takeaways for young lawyers and legal entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I would focus on what you like to do. I wouldn't focus on the making money part. I would
Yeah.
focus on, let me do something that I enjoy. Of course, you got to have somebody to buy your stuff, right? You need to have a market for it and all that. But I think not focusing as much on, will this make me money, like putting pressure on the money, because the money will come, right? If you pick something you enjoy, the money will come, and life is too short not to do something that you enjoy doing. So I would love to see more people just, again, I know it's not always possible. I know we got to pay bills and all those things, but yeah, like if you're starting something, do something you like. And if it's not something you like, don't do it.
Yes.
Start something else. I've made many pivots in different directions with Law Practice Queen, with my law firm, with my career. And just don't be scared to take those risks and to do things that you enjoy.
So keep experimenting, find what you enjoy, pursue it, and don't think about money. Money will follow. Thank you so much, Katie, for being on the show, for giving us your time and for sharing the insights. Thank you so much. I'm sure the audience is going to love this episode.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Hey there, thank you for attending today's session. If you enjoyed today's session, do follow our channel and consider sharing it with a friend. My name is Priggya Arora, daughter of inspiring parents, alumna of IIT Kharagpur, engineer turned lawyer and entrepreneur, and now founder of PA Legal, where we help creators and innovators protect their intellectual property. Thank you.